Hello, everyone, and welcome to another random bits and pieces from my brain. And today we're going to be playing Franchise Hockey Manager 6, which is a hockey sim game made by Out of the Park Development Studio. They're also known for their baseball game, Out of the Park Baseball. That game has 20 versions to it. So this game came out last week on October 11th. It's available on Steam and also through the company's website. So you can get the game if you're interested in either of those places. So for this Hockey Sim series here, we're going to go ahead and focus on my favorite team, the Ottawa Senators. And we're going to take charge of them at their inception when they first joined the league back. So in 1992, the team came back. They were given a franchise. And as we know, for those of you who follow hockey a little bit, we weren't very good on our first few years. The first year particularly was brutal. We won a grand total of 10 games out of 84. It was very, very, very bad. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can kind of change history a little bit here. And we're going to see if we can get a Stanley Cup even, maybe. Or maybe earlier success than the Sens did in real life. So a couple things here about that particular game. So some of the settings that I've set up is, first thing is I'm starting with the Sens as they were, so I didn't redo the draft to try to get better players or anything like that. I've got the Sens as they were drafted, so we're going to probably be as equally bad as they were in real life. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I am not going to be redoing drafts. I know that part of the fun of doing a series like that is that maybe you draft different players and see what could have happened and everything. Thing is that I really consider my hockey knowledge to be quite above average, and I know quite a lot of players and everything. So in the past, I've bought every single iteration of that game, and in the past, I've been able to build really, really strong teams by going back through the draft. So what I've set up for this particular playthrough is that players will enter the game and be on the team that either drafted them or signed as a free agent with. So for example, after the first season, regardless of where I land in the standings, which by the way I'm probably gonna finish last, that first year is just gonna be really, really, really tough. But anyway, so regardless of where I land in the standings or anything, next year I'm going to have Alexander Degg on my team. So that's what it means. I'm not going to go through the draft and draft Chris Pronger instead, for example. I know a lot of Sens fans wish that we could turn back time and go and get Chris Pronger and everything, and yeah, that would be pretty awesome. But I kind of want to keep the challenge as realistic as possible by having the players that the Sens actually had and try to go from there. In all of my playthroughs in the past, Daigle has never panned out. He's never lived up to potential. It could happen this time. That would be awesome because he was touted as a really, really, really good player, but I've never seen it happen. Which brings me to my other setting, is that I'm using the game engine for development of players and things like that. So instead of going through kind of using what happened in real life and making averages out of that, so that players are pretty much guaranteed to be close to what they were in real life and everything, I like to have a little bit more uncertainty. It's really not that bad. That's what I've been using in the past, and there's a few surprises here and there. In one of my mini sims, I believe it was in in Franchise Hockey Manager 4, Mike Fisher became a 100-point a season player. So that's not something that happened in real life. Mike Fisher was a pretty decent player, but he was nowhere near a 100-point a season player or anything like that. So those type of things might happen, and it's rare enough that it's not disturbing. Like, for example, we're not going to see Mario Lemieux have a really crappy season or anything like that. That's just not going to happen. Typically, the really, really good players are going to still be really, really, really good, and then sometimes you're going to have a few surprises here and there. So that's my other setting. And then finally, I've set it to not be fired. The whole purpose of this series is to see if I can rebuild the Sens and see if I can bring them to the playoffs sooner or give them a cup sooner or something like that. So obviously, if I get fired after 2 years because we suck, that's definitely not going to be a series we want to be a part of. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple things here. So brand new for this version of the game, and I think it's really cool, by the way, is that if we go to staff here, we're going to see that there's names that we recognize. For example, Bruce Firestone was the first owner of the Sens. He's the one that made the Sens coming back into the league possible. So, I mean, he's there. Then we have Rick Bowness, which was the Sens' first coach. So basically, all of the park developments have added all of the historical staff, so that, you know, that's all the real people. Like if I go in here, we're gonna see Alain Vigneault, Jim Nill. Those are some of the people that I recognize personally. My knowledge of players is pretty high, but I obviously don't know all of the assistant coaches that I've coached in the game. So it's all the real people. I think it's really cool. So kudos to all of the park here for getting that done. So we can see here Rick Bowness is more of a defensive coach. So we're going to need to try to keep that in mind while we're giving him players. And we have him under contract only for a couple years. So if we're not happy with him, we can definitely go ahead and replace him with somebody else. Now, we're going to look at the players. I'm not going to go through every single player on the roster here. One thing to note, we have 43 players. So in the NHL, you can have 50 contracts, 50 pro contracts total. So we have 43, so we have a little bit of room here. And before we start, I'm going to look at maybe signing a couple free agents to try to raise the pool of players, because the talent pool on the team is really not all that great right now. So I didn't make any changes yet in there, except for one thing is I've put Laurie Boschman as our captain. That he was the first captain of the team, so I decided to keep that. And then I've put Jamie Baker and Norm McIver as the assistants. McIver is probably going to be our quarterback. He's going to be the offense coming from the back end. He's almost the only one that has any kind of offensive upside from the back end. Another thing to note is I'm playing only as a GM, so I'm going to be giving players to Rick Bowness, and he's going to decide what he does with that. So I'm not going to decide on lines or tactics or anything like that. It's all going to be the coach's decision for that. Alright, so another thing here is we have all of our scouts. In historical games in Franchise Hockey Manager, you don't actually have all of the leagues. So, for example, I can't decide to send Jim Nill in Sweden or in the OHL or anything like that. It's pretty much all just labeled as free agents. So basically, every player that is not signed is considered a free agent, be it a player that has to go through the draft or things like that. So because of that, I don't really worry about it, and I just AI assign scouts, and it's just gonna put them all for free agents. As you can see, there's basically nothing else I can assign them to, so might as well just leave it, for the computer to decide. So we're gonna come back here, so we can see preseason schedule here. So all the games here where it says PS, those are preseason games. So we're gonna be playing 7 of them. So now let's go ahead and take a quick look here and see if we can sign somebody maybe. So we're gonna go to transactions, and so here we see the 3 players that we're gonna have that their contract is expiring at the end of the year. So Steve Weeks, Brad Marsh, and Doug Smale. And here we have the rookies that are unsigned. So there's a name that should be recognized here, Alexei Yashin. That was the team's very first draft pick. One thing to note with this particular series of game is they don't have every single player that have entered the draft in their existence. They only have all of the players that have actually played at least one NHL game. So that's why we only see 4 guys here. In 1992, the draft was either 9 or 11 rounds. I don't quite remember, but most of those guys never played, so they're not in the game. So those 4 guys played at least one NHL game, so that's why they're in the game. So they're unsigned. I'm not signing anybody. I know that it's tempting to sign Yashin because he's 18, he has a great potential and everything, but I'm gonna let him develop for at least 1 year in the minors before I bring him up. So now we're gonna look at the free agents, and we're gonna click here on ability to see who's the best. So when you have unsigned draftees, they also show up in here. Remember what I said earlier about the scouting, how anybody that doesn't have a contract is technically considered a free agent. So that's kind of linked together. That's why we see Yashin here. He's not technically a free agent, but he's a guy I can sign. Now Igor Larionov though is free agent. He's 31 years old, and I think he would fit perfectly for us to try to give us a little bit of offense. He's not all that great, but he's definitely better over a few different options that we have on the team right now. So we're gonna go ahead and offer him a contract. Right, so he wants 3 years and $635,000. So that's a lot more than most people on the team. So we're gonna go ahead and meet his demand. Again, that's more than most people on the team, so I'm not going to try to give him more. 3 years at that salary. Okay, it all looks good. We're gonna see what he thinks about it. Sounds pretty good. Alright, so he looks pretty happy with it. We're going to submit the offer, and then we're going to see if he's going to sign with us. Then another guy that we're going to look at. So the Sens don't really have a huge pool of talent at any position, but probably the weakest of all the positions for the Sens when you start is right wing. So we're going to go ahead and try to give a contract to Jonas Bergqvist as well. He's only a 1-star player, but that's pretty much in line with the talent level we already have on the team. He has a 13 offense, 13 defense. I mean, he's alright, I guess. So we're gonna go ahead and try and offer him a contract as well. He wants a lot less money. He wants $200,000 over 3 years. We're gonna go ahead and meet his demands. And then we're gonna go ahead and see what he says. Alright, he seems to be liking that, so we're gonna go ahead and submit. Alright, so we have submitted 2 different offers, and there's really nobody else that I'm interested into trying to sign here. I mean, Brian Trottier was a pretty good player in his day, but when you start as the Sens in 1992, he's already 36 years old, and he's nearing the end of his career. The Sens strategy during their expansion draft was to draft a lot of veterans, so we don't really need another one. We have plenty of players that are fairly old, or so we're gonna go ahead and go back here. Now if we go back to the home screen, we can see also here the 2 contracts that I have offered, and now we're gonna advance the days and see if they want to sign with us. So In 3 days, we play our first preseason game in San Jose. Alright, so... Okay, that says that Bergquist is kind of thinking about signing with us. Same for Larionov, so they don't sign right away. You kind of have to give them a few days to think and see if they get offers from other teams and things like that. And here top, you can see who made the highest bid so far. So if it was saying, you know, Montreal, for example, Montreal would have made a higher offer than me. So it could be useful to see that if you're trying to keep a contender in your division from getting like that one extra piece that they need. So, and that obviously if you need the piece too and you have room and money for it and everything, but that's part of the strategy. Alright, so here we have the training camp development. So it's training camp, so our players are going to get better at certain things. That's just normal because during training camp you train, obviously. So we have all of the different players here. Usually the younger players tend to develop more than the older players. So, you know, that's why, for example, Kent Painter is, you know, 27 years old, so he's getting a +1 in professionalism, but Radek Hammer is 18, so he's getting like all of those stats because there's more room for improvement when you're younger. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. I tend to not keep my emails. I find that I don't like the clutter, so. Alright, I'm gonna come back here. So we still haven't heard back from Larionov or Bergquist. And now we're going to play the game against the Sharks. Again, I have no control over the lines or anything like that. That's all Rick bonus. So let's see here. So he's going to send Laurie Boschman as our first line center, Jamie Baker. So, yeah. If you don't recognize many of the names there, there's a good reason for that. You're probably not a diehard Sens fan like me. Those were no superstars for the most part. I mean, McIver was pretty decent, I guess. So we're gonna go ahead and continue. I don't play games. Playing the games is really just a visual representation of what happens during gameplay. It's just basically the sim put slower and you get to see it kind of develop live. If I were to do that for every single game, we would never go through, you know, any stretch of time. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sim the game and see what happens. And we won. We actually won our first preseason game. Let's go ahead and look at the stats here. So we won 3-2. So some stats to look at. So we got badly outshot, 39-15. That's going to happen a lot. The Sens are not very good, and it's no slight on anybody who played on that team. I mean, you guys won 10 games anyway, so can't really argue that. So badly outshot, but the Sharks really took a lot more penalties than us. So the 3 stars, Lonnie Loach, didn't really have much of a NHL career, but he scored 2 goals for us. Denis Vason scored for San Jose, and then Gord Deneen scored the other goal. So that's pretty much what it looks like after you sim a game. You have all of the summary per period. So there were no scoring in the first. So what you see here are all the penalties that were taken. Denis Vason scored the first goal of the game in the second, assisted by Sandy Sozolinch and Ray Whitney. Then Gord Deneen, and then we won that in overtime. So we're gonna go ahead and continue, see what happens from here. Good night for Luc Robitaille. 3 goals and an assist. It's only a preseason game, none of that counts, but you always want to go out in a bang even during preseason. Need to be ready for the season to start. Mario Lemieux set everything up tonight. A goal and 4 assists for Mario Lemieux, so another pretty good game. Now keep in mind this is the 90s, right? So there's the scoring is a lot higher than it is nowadays. 7-6 and 9-6 games are a little bit more common than now. Now you might see 1 or 2 9-6 games total for the entire league in 1 year, but back then those scores were a lot more common. Igor Larionov signed, so alright, so we have Igor Larionov with us now. Good deal. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and give him a number. So historically, Larionov wore number 8. Now, technically, number 8 was retired at the start of the 1900s by the Sens, because the guy that was wearing that number, I believe, died. So in his honor, they retired the number. But it's worn right now by Mike Peluso. So I'm going to ignore the fact that it's retired in real life, and I'm going to give number 8 to Igor Larionov. And I'm going to tell politely to Mike Peluso, because he was quite the fighter and he could totally kick my butt. We're going to gently tell him that he can wear number 80. There you go. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and continue. And Jonas Bergqvist signed as well. So now we're up to 45 contracts. Typically when you... Well, it's true in the real NHL, but I really don't expect an NHL GM to take tips from me by listening to this. But when you play this game, you always want to try to keep a few contract slots open. So, like I said, the max is 50. Now we're at 45. I'm going to keep it around that because sometimes there's a team that might come with a trade where they want to trade you a few different players for one of your higher end players, and you need to kind of have the contract slot room to be able to take over those players. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And now he wants number 18 again. I expect Bergqvist to make the team, so I'm going to give him his number. I don't expect Andy Schneider to make the team, so I'm going to give him number 59. That sounds like a preseason number that you never wear after preseason is over. So I'm going to give that to him, and then we're going to delete that. Alright, so now we're playing against Buffalo. So let's see if Rick Bowness uses those 2 new players in the preseason game. Actually he is, and he's playing them on the same line too. Larionov with Bergqvist and Doug Smale. Oh, looks like he's going a little bit more with the B team here. A lot of players are not expected to start the season in there. Oh my god, look at that Andrew McBain on the second line with his 4. Like, so basically how that works is that you have the individual player tactics here. So for example, Jonas Bergqvist is going to play as a back-checking forward for that game, and he's rated at a 14. That's out of 20. So he's not great at it, but he's decent at it. Andrew McBain's going to play on the second line as a grinder, and he's a 4 out of 20. He's horrible at it. So he's put into a position where he's basically going to fail. Like if you look compare with Darcy Lohan here, he's a 12, so he's okay as a grinder, but Andrew McBain is going to be way over his head here. Pat LaFontaine. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and sim the game. And we won again, oh my god. We won 4-3. The B team won against the Buffalo Sabres. Oh boy. Okay, so look at the shots here. I don't know how we managed to win that, but yeah, we were outshot 52-14 in today's NHL. If you see that, that's, you barely never see a big discrepancy like that. It's, wow, that's terrible. So, Larionov, a goal and an assist. Again, this is preseason, it doesn't count, but it's nice to see that. And then we have our defenseman Dominique Lavoie with a goal and 2 assists. So, wow, we won again. Was that one? it was won in overtime again with Larionov with the game winner. Pretty good stuff. So we won our first 2 preseason games. Don't expect for that to happen during the regular season. I would be really surprised. Obviously, if it happens, it happens. In real life, the Sens won their very first game against the Montreal Canadiens. So, who knows? Red Wings lose Yzerman to mild hamstring strain, out for 2 weeks. So Steve Yzerman obviously was a great player. In 1992, he's right in his prime at 27 years old, 5-star player. He's only out for 2 weeks, so he might not even miss any season game, depending on how the schedule is set for Detroit. But yeah, still sucks for them to lose him for the preseason, I guess. Derek King has a strong game. So 3 goals and 1 assist for Derek King of the Islanders. Alright, now we're playing in Vancouver. I believe the preseason schedules are kind of random. They don't really make sense as far as, you know, traveling and everything. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to be in Ottawa for one day and then out in Vancouver the next day. It just doesn't make any sense. So I really believe that preseason games are kind of random, and that's fine. It's really just to see if we're in shape, I guess. Alright, let's play this game against Vancouver. Alright, so looks like he's sending Larionov on the 3rd line. So I signed Larionov to try to instill a bit of offense, and he's going to be playing with 2 grinders in Trent McCleary and Andy Schneider. So we'll see how he fares in that role. And you can see Norm McIver, you know, point shooter, so basically the quarterback there. He's a 15, so he's going to be decent. So Radek Hammer has only a 5 for mobile defenseman, but he's also 18 years old, so I'm not really worried about him having that low of a rating for that at the moment, because he's probably going to develop further. So we're going to go ahead and continue. Alright, so we couldn't continue to win all the time, so we had to lose a game. So we just lost to the Vancouver Canucks. Now, let's see here. So again, we gave over 50 shots on goal. I expect it to happen. It's a sim game. It's not really... it's pretty close to reality, I found. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty realistic. Yes, 51 shots on goal, if you think about it, in today's standards, that's really high, and you really don't see that all that often. But in the 90s, there was a lot more offense, and a struggling team like the Sens could definitely allow that type of that amount of shots. I mean, ask Ron Tugnut. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should look up Ron Tugnut making 77 saves in a game. Was it 77? He made a crazy buttload of saves in a tie against Boston. Anyway, it was in the 70s number of shots. Anyway. So, let's see. Pavel Bure, a goal and 3 assists, so he had a pretty good game. Sylvain Turgeon for us had a pretty good game, 2 goals and an assist. And then Sergio Momesso, a goal and an assist. So, yeah. We definitely got more shots. So, we got to 26. That's a decent amount, but we really need to learn to suppress shots a little bit. Here I am talking about Corsies and everything way before they were invented in 1992. Alright. Excuse me. Alright, so Doug Gilmour set everything up tonight. A goal and 4 assists for Gilmour. Mario Lemieux, 4 goals and no assists. And here we have our first scouting reports. Especially at the start of the game like that, I don't look at it all that much because they tend to look at like all of those free agents that are alpha star and everything. So I mean, I'm not going to be signing the Don McSween. I have no interest in signing him. And then, the other type of players that they look at are people like, Peter Forsberg. I know that Forsberg is going to be a 5-star player unless he really doesn't develop. So I know Peter Forsberg. Well, not personally, but I mean, I know him as a player. So, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And then we're going to take a look here. Next game is against the Tampa Bay Lightning, our little cousin from the expansion that probably did a little bit of a better job than we did with their draft. So again, playing Larionov on the third line, but this time playing with Loney Loach, so a little bit of a offensive upside there, and then Thomas Jelinek, the grinder. So we're gonna go ahead and see what happens in that game. We have Peter Sidorkiewicz in net. And they have Wendell Young. And we won 3-2. So we're having a pretty good preseason, all things told. 3 wins and a loss. That's pretty impressive, actually. Alright, so 3-2. Jonas Bergquist that I signed got 2 goals. So good signing for me. Too bad that it was only in the preseason, and then Danton Cole an assist, and Bradshaw scored a goal. So, goal on the power play here. So, again, we got outshot, not as badly, but we still got outshot. We need to figure that situation out. It's going to be difficult. I'm going to need to find some help playing defense or something like that, and there's probably not going to be a whole lot of help to come in that regard. Great night for Pierre Turgeon, 4 goals. Ooh, Mike Vernon is hurt. Mike Vernon of the Calgary Flames said he feels okay considering he has just suffered a torn back muscle. Ooh, that's not good. It happened in a game against the Vancouver Canucks as the goalie was injured colliding with the boards. He is expected to be out of action for roughly 5 months. Ooh, that's not good for Calgary. They need Vernon in there. Pretty sure it's their starting goaltender, so they're gonna need to figure that out. They might need to make a trade or sign somebody or something. Now we're playing at New Jersey for the next preseason game. We're on a roll. I mean, we only lost once so far. Oh, starting Marty Brodeur in net. So Marty Brodeur is at the very start of his career. So we can see if he develops as he did in real life. Okay, so yeah, we lost 6-0. So that happened. Stéphane Richer, a goal and an assist. Daneyko, 2 assists. Scott Stevens, an assist. And we got badly outshot 44-18. Oh, they played rough. 41 penalty minutes. So it was a rough game, I guess. Valery Zlepukin had a 5-minute for a check to the head. So pretty rough game. We got outplayed in all facets of the game. Lost 6-0. There's really nothing to see here. We're just gonna go past that. Big game for Paul Coffey, 4 assists. Paul Coffey, 31 years old, still quite a few good years left. Red light stays on for Tony Granato, which means that he scored a bunch of goals, scored 3 goals. That's good. Memorable game for Wayne Gretzky. Well, I don't know how memorable a preseason game can be for Gretzky, but okay. So a 4-assist game. Strong night for Sakic, 5 assists. Sakic, of course, playing for the Quebec Nordiques. It's 1992, so the Nordiques haven't moved yet. Good night for Teemu Selanne, 3 goals and 2 assists. So Selanne starting his career, 22 years old. He's going to be pretty good for the Jets. Alright, so next preseason game is against Hartford. which, by the way, I was sad when Hartford moved. I always loved Hartford jerseys. I'm not even a Hartford fan per se, but I have a couple Hartford Weathers t-shirts and whatnot, so I was sad. Alright, so moving Larionov to the second line, playing with Jody L and Jeff Lazaro, so he might be able to do something there. And Laurie Boschman still playing on our first line with Bergquist and Sylvain Turgeon. Excuse me. And we lost, but we lost 3-2, so we lost by 1 goal. Let's go ahead and see. Oh, the shots here, I like that. I like that the shots are 30-29. It looks like we're starting to figure things out a little bit. Given, Hartford wasn't the best team in 1992, but still we managed to close the gap on shots on goals. And compared to the other game, there wasn't a lot of penalties here. So Murray Craven scored 2 goals. Mark Freer for us scored a goal, and then Zardy Zalapski got 2 assists. So we lost, but it was a decent loss, I guess. New York loses Brian Leetch to injury. Ooh. Brian Leetch of the New York Rangers had to leave the game against the Philadelphia Flyers after suffering a serious injury. The team has now learned the full extent of that injury, as he has sustained a bruised kidney and is expected to miss about 4 weeks. Oh, he's going to miss a month after colliding with the goal. Oh. So, Brian Leetch, 5-star player. He's really, really good. And he's only at the start of his career there. He's 24. So, a big blow for the Rangers there. Bad news for Oilers. Muni injured. Craig Muni suffered a fractured knee today in a game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He will miss 5 months. So Muni is not the best defenseman. He's a star and a half. He's 30 and everything, but still he probably would have started the year with the Oilers. So it's a blow for them. They're going to need to find a replacement for him. Joe Mullen had a good game, 4 assists. So that's pretty good. Then our last preseason game against the Quebec Nordiques, we are probably going to lose. The Nordiques were starting to be pretty good in 1992. So, now we're using Larionov on the 4th line. I guess Rick Bowness is trying all kinds of stuff. We lost, but we lost 4-3. So again, it would almost indicate that we're holding our own. Not really when you look at the shots. So again, we kind of got badly outplayed by a great team. The Nordiques were pretty good. So lost 4-3. Joe Sakic, a goal and an assist. Darren Rumble scored for us, and then Steve Duchesne. A little bit of trivia. Steve Duchesne scored the goal that sent the Sens to their very first playoff participation. So I don't know if I'm going to get him on the team during this playthrough, but yeah. So Lonnie Loach had 3 goals during the preseason. Dave Archibald improves at left wing. Your staff has informed you that Dave Archibald is becoming more comfortable playing at left wing. So I guess Rick Bowness has used Dave Archibald on the wing, and he's starting to feel more comfortable there. All right, so that concludes the preseason here. So that's an email to tell me that our new players are slowly getting more accustomed to being on the team. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. Bill Holder donates time and money to cancer research. In a news conference today, Buffalo defenseman Bill Holder has pledged to donate 1/10 of his 1992 salary to the American Cancer Society. I don't do it for the headlines, I do it for the patients and their families that are suffering through surgeries and treatment and recovery. Hopefully, one day we can all find a cure. I'm happy to contribute to that goal, knowing that my money will be used for the greater good. So events like that tend to boost players' personality. So I'm not sure exactly what improved for Bill Holder. If it was one of our players, I believe it would say what. But that's a nice gesture. So it's kind of improving his personality, his persona, basically. Oh, and we have our first trade of this playthrough, a trade between the Islanders and the Blues. So the Islanders are sending Claude Loisel and Dan Plante to the Blues for Paul Cavallini and Kelly Chase. Not a trade that's going to, be known as the biggest trade in history. Paul Cavallini was an okay D-man. You can see his stats, they're pretty consistent, 35 points a season type of guy, 26 years old. He was okay. He wasn't like a superstar or anything, but he should be playing for Long Island. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. So we saw our first trade there. And this is just to warn me that some players might need to clear waivers, because now we're going to be at the point where we need to make cuts. So it was training camp, we had everybody up. Now we're going to need to decide which players we get to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a video for today. When we come back next time, I'm going to make the cuts, decide who makes the team, and then we're gonna go ahead and take it from there. So as usual, guys, thank you for tuning in, and until next time, whenever I roll this game again, see ya.